Hello, my name is Jeremy, and this is the True Crime Chronicles channel. Upon initial observation, Daisy Coleman seemed to embody the quintessential image of grace and potential. Her kind demeanor, sharp intellect, and an array of talents made her a picture of youthful vibrancy. Yet, beneath the surface of her alluring exterior, Daisy harbored a deeply troubled spirit. From a tender age, she faced harrowing experiences that belied her outward appearance. Daisy Coleman entered the world on March 30th, 1997, in the quaint town of Albany, Missouri. Her family consisted of her father, Michael, a practicing physician, and her mother, Melinda, a veterinarian. Daisy was the second of 4 children in the Coleman household, surrounded by 3 younger brothers. The year 2009 marked a pivotal and tragic moment in their lives. Daisy, her father Michael, and one of her brothers were en route to a nearby town for a wrestling tournament when their journey took a fateful turn. Their car struck an unforeseen obstruction, leading to a devastating crash into a ravine. This accident claimed the life of the family's patriarch. In the wake of this tragedy, the Colemans relocated to Maryville, Missouri, a larger city offering new beginnings. Melinda found herself at the helm of the family, grappling with the immense responsibility of single-handedly raising her 3 sons and daughter. This period was rife with challenges, a prelude to further trials that the family would encounter. In the chilly pre-dawn hours of January 8, 2012, Daisy Coleman, a 14-year-old, found herself awakening in the snow-laden yard of her home, the temperature plunging to 0 degrees or lower. Daisy lay there, her hair frozen to the ground, clad only in a t-shirt and athletic pants. The first thought that struck her in that bewildering state was a haunting one. I must be dead. Immobilized, unable to raise her voice or articulate her thoughts, she was engulfed in tears. With immense effort, Daisy managed to drag herself to her house's front door, pounding on it with every ounce of her remaining strength. It was now 5 a.m. By some stroke of fortune, her mother Melinda, deep in slumber in her room, discerned the odd noise. Initially mistaking it for their dogs seeking shelter from the cold, Melinda donned her robe and made her way to the door, intending to let the pets in. The sight that met her upon opening the door was nothing short of a shock. Her daughter Daisy was lying on the threshold. Daisy lay on the frosty steps, her consciousness waning, with the sharp scent of alcohol enveloping her. She was unable to articulate her plight, expressing her distress only through tears. In a panic, her mother Melinda called out for assistance, summoning her sons. They sprang into action, hurrying downstairs to retrieve the hypothermic Daisy from the cold and bringing her into the warmth of their home. The family's fear was palpable. Initially, they tried to warm Daisy with blankets. Upon closer inspection, however, Melinda noticed severe signs of frostbite on her daughter's legs. She quickly filled the bathtub with water, instructing her sons to carry Daisy to the bathroom and then leave her under her care. Daisy was still unresponsive as Melinda started to undress her, revealing extensive bruising and red marks on her legs. It was at this moment that the grim reality dawned upon Melinda. Her beloved Daisy had endured something horrific. She gently placed Daisy in the cool water, applying her veterinary knowledge to administer appropriate first aid for the frostbite, gradually raising the water temperature to warm her daughter's body. Thankfully, her efforts were successful, and Daisy began to regain warmth. But her speech remained confused and disjointed. Alarmed by her daughter's condition, Melinda dialed 911, prompting the arrival of the police. The officers arrived and examined Daisy. Daisy's mind was still clouded by alcohol, and she was unable to testify about the events of the previous night. So the officers had to listen to the story of Daisy's friend Paige, who was at the Coleman family home that night and slept in the room with Daisy. Here's what the friend said. On Saturday, January 7th, 2012, Daisy invited her best friend Paige to her house for a party. In the evening, the girls watched horror movies and drank hot drinks, which were secretly stolen from the home wine cabinet of the family Coleman. Toward nightfall, Daisy began texting with her older brother's friend, a 17-year-old boy named Matthew Barnett, who was a popular player on the high school soccer team. Matthew, upon learning that Daisy was having a sleepover with her friend, sent the girls a text message that read, "Hey, do you want to have some fun at my place?" Daisy and Paige were excited about the offer and agreed to meet Matthew and his friends without a second thought. Around 1 a.m., already on January 8th, The friends snuck out of Daisy's house through her bedroom window and ran around the corner of the house, where Matthew and 4 of his buddies met them. The guys took the girls to Matthew's house, helped them get into the basement through a window, and asked them to be quiet so as not to wake Barnett's parents, who were sleeping upstairs. Paige revealed that as soon as she and Daisy got into the basement, Matthew immediately started buying Daisy drinks. Her friends sat and watched Daisy, who drank one drink after another almost continuously. At one point, one of the guys, Nicholas, came over to Paige, took the girl by the hand, and led her to the next empty room in the basement. There, the couple had an intimacy initiated by the young man. At this time, Matthew and Daisy secluded themselves in another room, inside of which was a large bed. When the door opened several times, Paige managed to see what was happening in that room with Daisy. The girl was lying on the bed almost unconscious. She couldn't speak or move. Matthew took advantage of her helplessness and made close contact with Daisy. His friend, Jordan Z, filmed everything that was happening on his smartphone camera. At 2 a.m., the boys decided it was time for everyone to head home. They drove Paige and Daisy back to the Coleman residence. Upon arrival, Paige was the first to exit the vehicle. Matthew advised her that Daisy needed to stay outside for a while to sober up in the cold air. The boys assured Paige they would stay with Daisy to ensure her safety on the street, urging Paige to return home and rest. Trusting their words, Paige agreed and left Daisy with them. She entered Daisy's bedroom through the window, quickly fell into bed, and fell asleep almost instantly. In the meantime, the boys assisted Daisy out of the car. They propped her up to keep her from collapsing as she was overwhelmed by nausea. The boys removed her shoes, took her bag and mobile phone, and held her hair back as Daisy vomited. After ensuring she was no longer sick, they gently laid her on the ground near her house. Concerned about being seen and the risks involved, the young men hurriedly departed in their car, leaving Daisy alone in the cold. Daisy remained exposed to the frigid 0-degree temperature for approximately 3 hours. She was without socks or shoes, clad only in a t-shirt and sports pants, her wet hair frozen. Responding to the situation, the police conducted a thorough inspection of the Coleman residence and its surroundings. Inside Daisy's room, they found 5 plastic bottles containing alcohol. Outside, they came across Daisy's bag, mobile phone, shoes, and evidence of vomit nearby. That morning, Daisy was transported to the hospital for a medical evaluation. The doctors noted bruises on her legs and signs of trauma in her genital area. A series of medical tests were conducted, revealing that her blood alcohol level was nearly double the legal limit. After spending several hours in the hospital, Daisy regained consciousness but had no recollection of the previous night's events. She admitted to consuming an excessive amount of alcohol and acknowledged taking it from her mother's cabinet without permission. Daisy also confessed to sneaking out to visit the boys' house, but she could not recall the details of what transpired there. By 11 a.m. on January 8th, just hours after the incident, police officers had located and detained Matthew Barnett, Jordan Z, and Nicholas Gramudis. The young men were charged and brought to the station for questioning. During the interrogation, Matthew Barnett acknowledged having a sexual encounter with Daisy Coleman that night, but he insisted it was consensual. He recounted that Daisy and Paige were already intoxicated when he met them. Initially, Matthew denied providing any alcohol to Daisy, but as he continued his account, inconsistencies emerged in his testimony. Ultimately, he conceded that he did offer Daisy several shots of alcohol, suggesting it was to melt her cold heart. Matthew explained that he had used a condom during the encounter and disposed of it by throwing it out of the car window while they were driving Daisy back to her house. Jordan Z initially refused to testify, but later admitted that he used his friend Nicholas's smartphone to make a video of Matthew kissing Daisy. The video lasted about 10 seconds. Jordan managed to show the clip to his friends before freaking out and deleting the video. Nicholas, who induced Daisy's friend Paige into intimacy, was the only one who immediately fully pleaded guilty. The guy was sent to a juvenile detention center. Matthew's friend, who drove the group to Daisy's house, recounted that during the ride, Daisy was continuously crying, and Matthew was worried that her brother Charlie would be furious if he found out about everything. Additionally, it emerged that Matthew had visited the Coleman family a few days before the incident, where he had dined with them in a friendly atmosphere. By 1 p.m. on January 8th, a search was conducted in the basement of Matthew Barnett's house. The police seized bed linen, several empty bottles, men's underwear, and plastic cups as part of their investigation. In the course of further interrogations, the deputy sheriff appeared to develop a sense of empathy towards Matthew's account of the events. At one point, the officer even remarked, "It's not uncommon for girls to engage in various actions to seek attention, and this might just be one of those instances." He commended Matthew for his supposed thoughtfulness in driving the girl home. However, the officer seemed to overlook the critical detail that Matthew had abandoned her outside, alone in the cold. Days later, Daisy Coleman made a full recovery, no longer facing any immediate health threats. However, she was still unable to recall any additional details about the traumatic night. By March 2012, 2 months after the incident, the charges against Matthew Barnett and Jordan Z were completely dropped. The district attorney concluded that the interaction between the young individuals was consensual. The video Jordan had filmed and subsequently deleted, which allegedly showed Matthew kissing Daisy, was never recovered, despite claims from several of Jordan's classmates that they had seen it. An examination of the mobile phones belonging to Matthew and Daisy revealed sporadic communication, about once a month. In these exchanges, Daisy suggested a willingness to engage in sexual activity with Matthew in return for alcohol. There were also text messages preceding January 8th, where both Daisy and Matthew exchanged mutually explicit content of a sexual nature. After Matthew's release, it came to light that he was the grandson of Rex Barnett, a prominent politician and former member of the state legislative assembly, known for his involvement in the Committee on Criminal Law and Public Safety. Rex Barnett had established connections with many prosecutors and police officers across Missouri. Consequently, Matthew and Jordan were allowed to resume their normal lives. Meanwhile, Daisy Coleman hoped that the controversy surrounding her nightmarish ordeal would eventually subside. She resumed her studies, but instead of empathy and support from her peers, she encountered hostility and ridicule. The majority sided with Matthew, branding Daisy as deceitful and promiscuous. This sudden ostracization led Daisy to become reclusive, preferring the solitude of her home over social interactions. The girl, who once actively participated in community activities, sports, and dancing, became a shadow of her former self, even leaving the school's cheerleading squad. Simultaneously, her mother Melinda faced a barrage of anonymous threats at both home and her workplace. The situation escalated to the point where Melinda was compelled to resign from the veterinary clinic, where she had been employed for many years. Confronted with this unrelenting hostility, the Coleman family made the difficult decision to relocate in the spring of 2013. Tragically, their vacant house in Maryville, which was listed for sale, mysteriously burned down. The cause of the fire remained undetermined by the police, fueling speculations that it was an act of retaliation, possibly linked to Matthew Barnett's father. Under peculiar circumstances, sometime later, the house of Daisy's friend Paige also succumbed to a fire. By then, Daisy and Paige had ceased communication, and Paige, too, found herself ostracized at school, plagued by persistent nightmares. Eventually, Daisy's ordeal gained national media attention, resonating with others across the country who had endured similar experiences. This newfound support enabled Daisy to reopen the case against Matthew Barnett, her primary antagonist. At the subsequent trial, Matthew was only found guilty of leaving Daisy exposed to the freezing temperatures. He received a sentence of 2 years probation and was ordered to pay $1,800 in restitution to the Coleman family. No further charges were pursued against the other individuals involved in the incident. Daisy Coleman continued to face life's challenges, receiving both support and threats from anonymous online sources. She grappled with the harsh reality of the unfair treatment and criticism directed at her. In 2016, when Daisy was 19 and attending college, a Netflix documentary titled Audrey and Daisy was released. This film delved into the issues of violence, bullying, and cyberbullying, along with their devastating consequences. Daisy featured prominently in the documentary, courageously sharing her personal experiences. The film also highlighted the story of another young woman, Audrey Pott from California, whose tale ended in even greater tragedy. In a tragic parallel to Daisy Coleman's experience in 2012, Audrey Pott faced a similar ordeal, but with an even more heartrending outcome. Photos of Audrey circulated rapidly online, reaching not only her friends but also her adversaries. In her final social media post, Audrey expressed her profound despair. "My life is destroyed, the whole school knows. I can never get rid of this reputation. Everyone knows how bad I am. I want it all to end." Just 9 days after this post, Audrey, overwhelmed by the relentless humiliation and unable to cope with the magnitude of her suffering, tragically took her own life. 6 months following Audrey's tragic passing, her parents successfully initiated legal proceedings. The responsible individuals, 3 boys, received sentences of 30 to 45 days for their involvement in the incident. Subsequently, their families compensated Audrey's parents with approximately $1 million for emotional damages. Shifting focus back to Daisy Coleman, in 2018, she chose to embark on a fresh start by relocating to Colorado. There, she found employment at a tattoo parlor and was engaged in a new film project, which chronicled her journey towards healing. Tragically, in June 2018, Daisy faced another heart-rending ordeal when her mother, Melinda, and brother Tristan were involved in a car accident en route to visit Daisy from their hometown. Tragically, her 19-year-old brother Tristan lost his life in the accident, the details of which remain shrouded in mystery. Following the devastating loss of her brother, Daisy Coleman turned to social media to share her inner turmoil. In a heartfelt post, she admitted that with each passing day, it became increasingly challenging to contain her inner demons, fabricate a smile, and maintain the facade that all was well. In the wake of her brother's death, Daisy became a co-founder of a non-profit organization dedicated to aiding victims of violence. She continued to openly discuss her own traumatic experiences while offering support to others facing similar adversities. Daisy often used her posts to express the difficulty she faced managing her emotional distress, grappling with panic attacks, and being haunted by relentless, nightmarish recollections. In the summer of 2020, 23-year-old Daisy Coleman began telling friends that she was being followed by an unknown man sending her threats. She reported this to the police, saying the individual had been stalking her since December 2019 and pleading for help, but her pleas were ignored. On Tuesday, August 4, 2020, Daisy wrote on Twitter about her fear of leaving her house, unable to walk her dog or go to work due to her terror. She wrote that she had stopped eating and sleeping. Hours later, Daisy posted on Facebook that an unknown man had approached her house and knocked on the door. Frightened, she suspected he might have stolen her keys and could break into her house. Daisy also wrote that this man had stolen her photos and created a profile on a website, offering intimacy for money under her identity. After reading her daughter's social media posts, Daisy's mother, Melinda, called the Colorado police for a welfare check. At 4 p.m., officers arrived at her house, and she let them in. They stayed for about an hour, talking to her about the stalking. The officers noticed nothing unusual in Daisy's behavior, but shortly after they left, Daisy video called her boyfriend, took out a gun, pointed it at herself, and pulled the trigger. The boyfriend initially didn't understand what happened as the call dropped. Daisy stopped responding to calls, and the boyfriend called 911. When police returned to Daisy Coleman's house at 8 p.m., they found her dead. Daisy's mother, Melinda, announced her daughter's death by publishing a post on social media. She wrote, "She was my best friend and a wonderful daughter. How I wish I could have taken her pain onto myself. She never recovered from what those young boys did to her back in school, and it's just not fair. My daughter is gone from us." The mother confessed that she had fought for Daisy and her mental health for many years. She believed that she had done everything possible for her beloved daughter. The mother admitted that her daughter had indeed been pursued by a stalker in recent months. Also, Daisy had recently found out that she would never be able to have children. After Daisy's death, the tattoo parlor where she worked was robbed. The thief stole an album with Daisy's exclusive drawings and her tattoo machine. 4 months later, in December 2020, 58-year-old Melinda Coleman wrote another touching post on social media, dedicated to her beloved daughter. Afterwards, the woman took a gun and did the same thing as her daughter Daisy had done. In the Coleman family, only 2 sons remained, the older Charlie and the younger Logan. Daisy's charitable organization organized a fundraising effort to support the boys. It is known that the life and career of Matthew Barnett are going well and successfully. After the deaths of Daisy and her mother, Melinda, the man expressed his condolences for what happened to the Coleman family. If you found this story interesting, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to share your opinion in the comments. This was Jeremy. See you in the next video.